Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power. Hello there and welcome to this episode of Your Ultimate Life, the podcast created to help you live a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy by serving with your gifts, your talents. Today, I'm blessed to have a special guest, Aurora Winter. Aurora, welcome to the show.
It's great to be on the show with you. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. So one of the things I like to ask first is kind of a weird question, and maybe it's not weird. I'd like you to put off the jacket of modesty for a moment, and I'd like you to tell the readers how Aurora adds good to the world.
My mission, a little tiny story. So in 2015, I took my MBA. Actually went to Italy for a year, got my MBA, and I was graduated. I'm like, okay, this is as good as it gets. I'm officially approved with an MBA. And I asked God, what can you do with this little cog in the planet named Aurora? How can you, Lord, use the talents that I have, the passions that I have, the curiosities that I have to make the biggest difference? Because once I had my MBA, I could live anywhere in the world. I could do so many different things. And what came to me clearly, and probably you're somebody who could relate to this, it wasn't a voice so much, but it was a clear kind of understanding that I could take my passion for and love of story and communication and business, and if I could offer that to people who are already up to something, already making a difference in the world, that I could help them reach 100 times, 1,000 times more people and make a much bigger difference. So I call that karma math. So I really did sort of ask a Buckminster Fuller kind of question, like, how can I make the biggest difference? And that's what I'm doing now.
I love that. And we share that feeling. My commitment this year is to reach 300 million people with the message of worth, identity, possibility, ownership, and sovereignty. That's the acronym WIPOS, W-I-P-O-S. And so the books, the podcasts, the television show I have an LA Talk Radio weekly show live on Tuesday afternoons, and I've been on 700 or 800 shows. All of that is in an effort to share that possibility and truth. So we share that desire, and I'm really grateful for who you are and what you're doing to do that. So before we started, I asked you if you'd written the book of Aurora, and you said yes, and it talks about your own journey to self-discovery, and I haven't read it, and I don't know the details, but nobody falls up this mountain of a desire to serve, right? It always seems that there's some bunch of crap that happens, sometimes accidentally, sometimes other people, sometimes just cruel circumstance. And then we either let that ruin us or refine us. And sometimes we let it ruin us for a day, week, month, year, decade, who knows. And eventually, if we decide to refine us, there seems to rise up in us this yearning to serve. I could help somebody, this desire. So tell us a little bit about the story of how you didn't fall up this mountain.
Yeah, I did not fall up the mountain.
No.
I was a very ambitious young woman, graduated from the University of British Columbia, Canada, studied honors economics. My father was a professor, and I married my sweetheart. We started a wonderful business, the only business we could think of to start with no money. And we grew that to the largest yacht dealership and largest yacht charter company in Western Canada, a multi-million-dollar business.
Wow.
From an initial loan of $2,500 from our parents. And then my 33-year-old husband died right in front of me, and we had a 4-year-old son. So I went from the pinnacle of a dream life, super successful financially in my 20s, beautiful baby boy, a 4-year-old boy, and a wonderful husband who was my best friend, to in one moment, my life being turned completely upside down. And like you can probably imagine, I felt like Humpty Dumpty. I felt like I'd fallen off the walls, smashed into hundreds of pieces, and I had no idea how to super glue the pieces back together again. But I had a compelling reason. I had this 4-year-old boy looking up at me with such trust. I had to get it together for him. So that was the beginning of my journey of getting it together and going from heartbreak to happiness. And that is the name of my first book. It's called From Heartbreak to Happiness, an intimate diary of healing. And perhaps you can relate to this. For quite some time, I was furious with God. I'm like, how can you, take my son's father away?
How dare you?
How dare you?
Yeah.
And that did not help my connection with God. But then I
I
had
got a
something.
story here. Just a second. I have a client
Okay.
who's a doctor for a lot of years. She's retired now or just retiring. And she said, I've threatened God with a lawsuit many times. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I did struggle for a number of years, struggling going down the mountain, probably, maybe not going up, because I was grieving and I felt angry and I felt like a victim, although I hated that word and continue to hate that concept. But on the second anniversary of my husband's death, I was gifted with a dream, and this dream changed my life. So in the dream, my husband came to me on the second anniversary of his death, the only way he could in the dream. And we met at an airport with the stupid plastic tables. And I unleashed my fury at him. Everybody else is going somewhere else, but we're just sitting at these stupid plastic tables. And I'm like, how could you? Like, how could you? How could you leave me? How could you leave your son? How could you die? And he asked me 3 questions that changed my life. The first one was, well, if you had it to do all over again, would you still have our son? I'm like, I searched my heart for a nanosecond. Absolutely. He's the light of my life. He's my joy and my blessing. The second question was, if you had it to do all over again, would you still marry me? I thought about it, all the good times, the sailing, the business, the fun. I'm like, yeah, I'd still marry you. And then he asked me the third question, and this is the one that changed everything. He said, given those 2 answers, would you want to know that I would die young? I searched my heart and the dream for a long moment, and I discovered the answer was no. I would not want to taint the joy that we did have with dread. And that dream changed everything because it allowed me to accept what happened as if I had willingly chosen it. And that was the beginning of me going up the mountain instead of down.
So we're not going to leave that there. What does that mean to understand? Because we live in a world right now where there's so much victim mindset, there's so much addiction to mediocrity and so much learned helplessness. Like, what does it mean to accept something, to allow the truth of reality to be what it is and not be shackled by it?
To me, and everybody can have their own definition, of course, but to me, it means trying on the question that Einstein said. He said, we really face the most important question to answer is, do you think that the universe is conspiring to support you? Or do you think it's out to get you? And when I try on the idea that the universe actually has my back, or God, if you prefer, has my back, that there's something supportive that's not conspiring against me. Like, what if reality, all of it, is a blessing? And in fact, that's the only way to survive and thrive. Because if one little person tries to push against reality, you'll just get crushed emotionally and probably every other way too. But when we can, lean into reality and accept it and dance with it, that's where possibilities unfold. So for me, it meant like, well, what if there were other ways that my husband could have died that were even worse, that were even sooner? What if I never met him? What if I leaned into being grateful instead of resentful about what had happened?
When you say that, I love it. And don't disagree 1 minute. My history is long and difficult and complex and scattered with all kinds of battleground moments. And people ask often when I tell stories on shows and podcasts, if you could go back, what could you change? And I've been asked that question so many times, I know the answer in an instant. The answer is nothing. But the first 57 times I got asked, I might have thought about it for a moment. Because you think about, what else? And the truth is, we are who we are, how we are, where we are, when we are. And that's what we have. And we wouldn't trade it for anything. Because, that's the power that you have. Like you're going through that, choosing to accept something with gratitude instead of resentment. Like, what does that even mean? How do you choose to learn to be grateful for something that difficult? I mean, I give 50 other examples, but we'll just use that one. How do you learn to be grateful and find the gift in such a tragedy?
Well, it's not that easy, but in my case, I tried everything else. I tried drinking. I tried, working out like a demon at the gym. I tried going to church. I tried therapy, and none of those things worked. I tried railing at the universe or complaining to God. That didn't work. So at the end, I had gratitude left to try. And it was actually the gift of this dream that made it easy, because I feel like it wasn't the dream I felt was a message. It was like surprising to me. So it was hard to think that it was just inside of me. So I felt like it was a divine download. But
of course it was. So let's get that really clear right now. The universe does have your back. I think the phrase Einstein uses is the universe friendly? And I love that question and the outcome of it. And so yes, and yes, it was a divine gift to you. So we won't have to phrase it or call it anything else. So then go from there.
Yeah. So at the end of trying various different things that don't work, why not try gratitude? A Course in Miracles is a wonderful book, a bit of a hard read if you're not ready for it. But the basic idea in A Course in Miracles is that we can either choose grievances or gratitude. And that's fundamentally how life looks. If you choose grievances, you're resentful, you're angry, you're bitter. You can choose to see that other people are the cause of all of your problems. If you choose to gratitude, you can instead feel grateful that you're able to read, you're able to listen to this podcast, you're interested in having an outstanding and extraordinary life. You're interested, in what we're discussing here. And there's so much to be grateful for. And when you lean into gratitude, perhaps the next logical step is taking charge, taking action to do what you can with the life that you've been given.
I love that. What is the gift here? And what can I create with this mess? Okay. With this mess that I otherwise couldn't create.
Yeah.
Right.
I wrote a book about healing from grief. It's called Grief Relief in 30 Minutes, How to Use the Peace Method to Go from Heartbreak to Happiness. Mm-hmm. And what I learned through writing that book and through coaching a lot of people through grief is probably something that's very familiar to you, is kind of the ladder of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So every emotion or every thought could be equated to a vibration or to a step on this ladder of consciousness. So one of the things that was helpful for me to understand, which I first learned by reading the book Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins.
Hawkins, right?
Yeah, I love him. Is that grief is definitely a negative. It's below the neutral, definitely. But what was helpful to learn is that from grief, is anger more life force or less life force? Is guilt more life force or less? Or shame more or less? Like, these are not obvious, but once you look at the ladder of consciousness, which you can find on YouTube, I could see that, from grief, fear has more life force. So when I was guiding myself or my clients out of grief, triggering fear is actually useful, because it's not really that easy or not even possible to be Superman and jump, all the way from grief to empowerment and peace. You definitely can't logic somebody out of grief, because the intellectual is like 400s and grief is 75 on this arbitrary scale of 1 to 1,000. So just understanding that every thought is equivalent to an emotion, and that there's ladders can helped me and can help others to guide themselves in the right direction up the mountain instead of down. So if you are already feeling empowered and you reach for anger, that's the wrong direction. But if you're feeling grief or shame, fear can have more life force. So baby steps, take the next step.
After this, and thank you for that, after this divine intervention that you had that gave you a new perspective, and you realized that you wouldn't want to know, and that you did deeply treasure all the things that you had, and that they were beautiful bricks of gold, or, you know, sprinkles of gold in your heart and your life and your memory. What did you start doing next to move forward? Because sometimes we talk about this stuff and we say profound, cool stuff. Okay, cool. And then the question people have is, okay, what do I do first?
Okay, well, I have a little story that goes with that.
Great.
I was already a screenwriter at the time that my husband died. I owned our yacht business with him and also was a screenwriter. And so I was writing at home alone, which is not the best thing to do, to be home alone while you're grieving. Well, I've had my 4-year-old there. Anyway, so a friend came over and he said, "You are depressed. You need to come to this party in Vancouver," which was for the LA kind of Hollywood crowd. And I'm like, I don't feel like it. He's like, "No, get your stuff on. We're going." So I went to this party, which I really didn't want to go to. And I sat at the bar because I didn't feel like mingling, although I usually love talking to people, but I was grieving. And a man I didn't know sat beside me. He said, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a screenwriter." He's like, "Tell me about your story." I told him about my story and I got all animated and excited because I loved the story, which I was working on about absent fathers and lost sons, obviously related to my experience. And then he said, "I think you should represent the province of British Columbia and go pitch your story at the Banff Film Festival." I'm like, "Who are you?" And he turned out to be the head of the BC Film Commission. Now, I tell this story because there actually are 2 takeaways, or maybe 3. 1, get out of the house. That I had to get out of the house. 2, I talked about something I cared about and was passionate about without seeking anything. I didn't even know who that person was. And then point number 3, if you get out of the house and you show up with your energy of passion or enthusiasm, don't be surprised if the universe opens a door to you that you had no idea was even there. And from accepting that and speaking at the Banff Media Festival, I then got a job, and basically it turned into 20 minutes that turned into 6 figures. And I really did need the encouragement. And because my husband had died, I needed a job to support myself. So I think anybody can do those things. Get out of the house, talk about what you care about, what you're passionate about. And if an opportunity comes, say yes.
That's fabulous. And I love the story, and I love the 3 steps of advice. So how many years has it been since your husband passed?
My husband died in 1991, February 18th,
1991.
1991. Yeah.
February 18th. So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
Been a minute. And you got that job and you moved forward with that. And you told me earlier you'd written 10 or 11 or a bunch of books. And I'm going to guess that almost all of them have to do with your own journey and your life experience and things you've learned. Is that true, or am I off base?
Well, before writing books, I was writing screenplays, which are more
Right.
along the lines of the young adult fantasy series that I just launched called Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse. It's a trilogy. Written 3 or 4 books that are about happiness or healing from grief.
Mm-hmm.
Grief Relief in 30 Minutes, From Heartbreak to Happiness, Encouraging Words, the Grief Relief Workbook. 4, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that, a lot of my clients were coming to me and saying, "How did you get on so many TV and radio shows? How did you write so many books?" So I realized that people really wanted help with publishing and with messaging. And so I began to help people with that. I sold the Grief Coach Academy. Somebody else is operating that now. And now I run Same Page Publishing. So it's been a minute and it's been a journey, but I always like to think, okay, what problems have I solved, or am I in the process of solving, and how could that help others? So I always have like three questions when I'm thinking about doing something new, or somebody else might be thinking about doing a new business. Is like, what am I really, really good at? What do I still love to do? Because you have to love it. And who is that worth the most to? So in my case, I love words, I love communication. So now I help experts turn their expertise into best-selling award-winning books.
That's wonderful. And I love the fact that you do that because I think everybody has a story. Most people don't know it. And even if they do, they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
When you help, how do you help people find the story that they have? How do you help people find that?
This is the coolest part of what I do because I am also very interested in people. So usually I just work with people for maybe a month and we work on, I ask them about their life, just like you're asking me questions. And I see what is the thread of gold that actually intersects those three things. If it's what is the purpose of the book? Do they want to change lives? Do they want to leave a legacy? Do they want a memoir, or do they want something that would be a business builder? Do they want to start speaking on stages? So we take that end goal into account, or it could be fiction. I'm helping an author write a series of legal thrillers. So it's like, okay, what could be made into a movie as well as a series of books? And then I interview them, and very quickly the thread of gold becomes clear to me. And then I propose to the client, here's what I think the title is, the subtitle, here's the categories, here is the reader that will love this book. And then if they'd like to write it, they can either go ahead and write it without outline, or they can work with me. And how I generally work with people, over half my clients are dyslexic. It's just by speaking. I call it the spoken author method. So if there's maybe 10 chapters in a book, we will have like 10 1-hour conversations digging deep into that. And then I take that transcript and turn that into a polished book. So it's easy and fun for them. And I really like it. So it's fun for me too.
I love that. I have a question for you, and this is because I do that too. I run a workshop, book challenge, and I help people write their books and stories. And it's always the one I focus on is the book of them, their own story of transformation.
Yeah.
But what do you find personally what's in your heart that makes it really important for you to help people find the answers to those questions, the intersection of what you love and what you can do and how it's going to help people? Like what is in you that makes that important?
I only help people who have a mission to make a difference. So as I'm helping them make a difference, I'm indirectly making that difference. And that fuels me. You and I have both been in dark places, and sometimes, a smile or a book or a quote can lift you out of despair. So I'm like, obviously, I love books, but I've had my life changed so many times by authors who weren't even alive anymore. Like a book is like a seed, but what's so cool about it is it can germinate much later than when the seed was written. It can germinate decades or hundreds of years or thousands of years after the writer is dead. And you germinate it by opening the book and watering it with your attention, and then it can come alive. The teachings of the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius's diary have changed many people. I love the Tao Te Ching, ancient book, but my life has also been changed by Terry Pratchett, by C.S. Lewis, and by writers who are still alive today, like Brandon Sanderson, or James Clear. Like these people have changed the trajectory of my life in small or large ways. So for me, as a book lover and a word lover and a communication lover and a film lover, if I can help others do that, that's like so cool. And I have like decades of experience writing books and writing screenplays. And I also launched a film and television company. We raised $5 million, made 8 films. I worked as a television executive. So I'm that weird combination of TV executive, author, and somebody who's launched several 7-figure businesses. So when I bring that sweet spot of that combination to the right person, they're like, well, I wouldn't imagine coaching with anybody else because you've got that trifecta.
That's just absolutely fantastic. We live in a world today with a lot of division, negativity, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of
Yeah.
blame. And so when you look at that, how do you help someone who has a yearning to do something? They don't like that, but they are stuck in this story about who they are or aren't, or what they can or can't do. What do you appeal to first, or where do you go first to help someone at least light the spark of possibility? You got lit for you when you had that dream, and you had to actually answer that question and consider all the ramifications. Somebody comes to you and they want help. They've made that clear by talking to somebody, and you're it. Where do you go first to help them start to see a new field of possibilities?
Well, you might be surprised by my answer, which is I start first within myself. So I believe things into existence. So I need to believe in this client's vision, in their purpose, in their brilliance that just needs to be exposed. And once I can find in myself the part of me that can bedrock believe and see it and claim it and own it for them, then I can coach them. But if I don't see it, believe it, I can't claim it for them, and they're not the right client for me to help. So I don't help everybody who wants my help. But then once I see it and believe it in myself, like I've had such amazing things happen with my clients. For example, one of my clients, he's now got his own TV show, right? He always wanted to have a TV show. He didn't believe it could happen, but I knew it could happen. And then it happened. So that's cool. Their client, the litigation attorney, didn't believe that he could become a best-selling award-winning author. Now he's got several books on Amazon, over 3,000 reviews. He's an American Fiction Award winner. He's like, wow, I did it. I'm like, of course you did it. I knew you could do it. And then after I've found that part of me that really believes, that can see it, that can claim it, that can own it for them, that can call on the divine energy to support them in this divine mission, then I use coaching tools such as cognitive behavioral therapy, which I've written down a bunch of processes you can use in the book, Grief Relief in 30 Minutes, to help them see it too, and to help shift thinking.
What do you do? What kind of conversation do you have with them to find that thing so that you can figure out inside of you that kind of powerful belief? Because I understand that. Seeing things for people and knowing that it's there deeply and powerfully. I just have had some recent examples with one a client and one not a client that were unexpected, and that same kind of, seeing in them and for them. How do you have that conversation with them? Do you just find out about them, or what do you do to draw them out in a way that allows you to see and believe in that?
I don't know that it's that linear or logical. Yes, I have multiple conversations with them. I get to know them. I listen. Like if you deeply listen to somebody, you can hear the fear or the doubt or the little lack of self-worth that's standing in the way. And you can also hear, bravado, or you could hear if it's not really their goal, if it's something that they think they should want. Like that same client who now has his TV show, who's on top of the world, who is like amazed. Like every time he talked to me about making 7 figures, it wasn't his goal. It wasn't true to who he was. So I didn't choose to lean into that goal because it was just like society's goal. But his goal is to speak and change people through his books and through speaking. And the TV show, I could see him light up. And then I meditate every morning and usually pray for my clients to be blessed. And I know it sounds very airy-fairy, but I think it really makes a difference. If one person really believes in you, you can just do so much. It's so incredible. And then after I've got my part of it solid, then I would just directly ask them, what do you think is stopping you? Talk to me. Like what, and then they will usually say some limiting belief or some thought. I'm like, when did that thought first occur to you? Is that really your thought, or is it somebody else's thought? And then I lead them through the peace method, which is this 5-step process. And usually one of those 5 questions will create a huge aha. And then they can start leaning in. And it's not like one coaching session and then your self-worth issue or your self-doubt is gone. But each step can help open up that you can then take another step and another step. And before you know it, you have evidence from the world that you're capable and competent.
You do. I love something you just said. I want to ask you a little bit about it. You talked about getting up, doing stuff in the morning, prayer, meditation, other kinds of things. Something I've discovered in the years I've been doing this is, I call it a DCP, daily creation process. And it is an intentional, I don't like the word morning routine because it's so cliche, but it's a way you create yourself on purpose. Talk about what you do to create the Aurora every day.
This is turning into Tim Ferriss podcast. I love it. I get up, I make myself I have actually, first I start with juice because I heard from Andrew Huberman that if you have beet juice in the morning before coffee, that's good. So I start with juice. And then this morning, for example, I listened to 2 different meditations on YouTube. Those took about half an hour. And so then I just, really claim that high frequency space. And then I write sometimes for hours, but sometimes just for 5 minutes in my journal. I bless my family, I bless my team, I bless my clients, and I ask to be guided during the day to make a difference. And then that's about it. Sometimes I also, especially on the weekends, I would read a little something inspirational like the Tao Te Ching or maybe from A Course in Miracles or something like that. Or this weekend, I actually read Stephen Pressfield. You know him. He's the War of
I
Art
have all
guy.
of, yeah, the War of Art, the Artist's Journey. Nobody wants to read your crap. Turning Pro. I have all
Yeah.
those somewhere over on the shelves. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. And then I usually go to the gym and exercise for about an hour and 15. And then I start my work day after showering and having breakfast.
So
That
there's
works
two.
for me.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 hours there. Some people say my morning creation process is about 2.5 hours. And people will often say, "Oh, how do you do that? I don't have time." And my answer to that is, I don't have time not to, because
Exactly.
doing that, I say my 2.5 hours creates 5
Exactly.
during the
Exactly.
day. Do you find that to be true? Sounds like you understand
Absolutely.
exactly that.
Every time in the past when I've cut something out because I don't have time, it's like, no, you pay for it because I would run out of steam, 2 or 3 hours earlier in the day. Also, I find it's very interesting. You and I are both very creative. You've written songs, you've written like 20 books with the one that's coming out shortly. Um, in order to stay sharp creatively, it's not like we're, I don't know, bricklayers or something. We have to be sharp mentally, which means we need to honor our brain and our body. And also, we need to fill it with something to compensate for all the negativity when we listen to the news. I started a new YouTube channel called Strategic Basics. I'm having a lot of fun creating it, but the tagline is from breaking news to business breakthroughs. So I've been listening to a lot more news than normal, and I'm like, I need,
I
I need
totally
to
agree with
offset
that.
that.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you think. I don't know if you've shared the title of your new book, so I won't say it. And you can if you want. But I'm also noticing, because I do use the LLMs like ChatGPT, or I prefer Claude actually. And I find that it's not free for a human being to review dozens of options. There's a certain brain drain. So, I prompt the LLM, for example, thinking about a book title. So I'm working on a new book, working on a title and the subtitle. LLMs give me lots of options, but it's not free as a human being for us to review all of that. So I need to keep my brain sharp. And I'm curious what you think about that.
I think that over reliance. So the book I've got coming out is about coaching and the rise of AI. And I'm exploring what I think is going to decimate the coaching industry in the next 14 months and what you can do about it if you're either a coach or want to be and want to stay in business. I think that over reliance on the LLMs makes growth difficult, because even if it turns out something really good for you, you miss the work and the struggle that make you something different in the creation. And so they're very handy and they're very useful for things, but I am not going to outsource my growth just because it can do something for me faster, ostensibly. And I agree with you. I don't think you need all those options. When I write book titles or I help clients do that, there's a few. It just comes. It's intuition and inspiration, and it's a function of your creativity. And I love them as a tool, and I use them a
Mhm.
lot. I did a lot of analysis on coaching methodologies in creating my stuff for this book.
That's going to be
But
a great book. So many people are going to benefit from
but
that.
the
I
core
want to
of
read
it
it.
is what it's what it says, and the core of being is the thing that it can't do. Like,
Yeah.
we're looking at everything that it can do. It's going to replace this, that, and the other, and it is. And the real question is, what can't that do? What is the humanness that's now more important? And if we can get all the housekeeping stuff out of the way faster, then there's more time and power to do the creative thing that only the amazing creation of the divine, of the human being can do.
Yeah. And seeing as it's a language prediction model, the answer by definition is going to be mediocre, which is something you don't stand for. You are against mediocrity.
Addiction to mediocrity is one of the favorite topics that I have, right? I was just on a few radio stations, and I had the agency do a bunch of pitches. And the one that landed most of all is talk about how come addiction to mediocrity is ruining our lives. So yeah, I did several of those. So what didn't I ask you about that you want to tell people about creating the life you want, the ultimate life, or your own journey that's like that you'd like to talk about?
I would really love your audience to know that their creativity really matters on two levels. One, if you're creating, you are alive. I'm just going to go on a limb here and say, when they say that we're created in the image and likeness of God, well, what does God mean to people? God is a scary word, but I think what we're trying to say, or what that could be interpreted as, is you are created in the image and likeness of a creator. So when you are creating, you are tapping into all of this juicy, live energy, and that keeps you young. It keeps you, there's no such thing as holding still. You are either expanding and growing and contributing and creating, or you're shrinking and dying. And that is not what we want for you. So I love to suggest to people really lean into creativity. I actually have a cool episode on strategic basics about creativity is the new currency. And the second thing about creativity, even if you never publish your book or your memoir or your poem or your song, it still matters that you create it, because as you sift through your life and find your life story and realize, gosh, I never realized until I sat down, but that horrible thing that happened, if that hadn't have happened, these wonderful gifts and miracles wouldn't have unfolded. Like you gain a new perspective on your life, and then it's so much easier to lean into gratitude instead of grievances. And then the third part, I believe, obviously, for myself, but this is up to you. But I believe that we each have a responsibility to make the world a better place. And so what do you have to contribute that's more valuable than your own hero's story of overcoming adversity and eventually triumphing? Your story can change other people. So I'd love people to lean into that message.
I love that. And that's interesting because in the book I showed you earlier, the story arc, there's a process in there called the DSM, and it's not the shrink manual. It is the developmental story matrix. And it's a structured process to help people do exactly that, to mine the events of their lives for how they felt then, how they feel now, and then looking at that difference. How can the difference, my own growth, benefit those that I would serve? And
Exactly.
you end up with this entire spreadsheet, essentially, but this matrix of 50, 100, 200 events. And from that, you have an infinite number of keynotes and an infinite number of things that you can use to share from your own heart and life. And since it's your lived experience, it's the most powerful stuff you've got.
And it's your IP, it's your intellectual property.
It most certainly is.
So our stories matter more than ever in the age of AI. And I've
They
got to read
do.
that book. The story arc sounds great. The
Well,
other
yeah.
thing, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. No.
The other thing I would really love people to know, because most first-time authors spend 3.5 years writing a book, and then they drop the ball right at the finish line. So in my book, Turn Words into Wealth, or one of my books, I got a bunch, I walk through 7 different ways to make 7 figures with your message. So one of the things I love to help people, even people who already have published books, or they're just about to publish the book, even if they don't need help with the content of the book, I love to help people think through, how are you going to make a difference to your reader after they've read your book? So my first published book, which was called From Heartbreak to Happiness, I really, in my innocence, thought, okay, I put all my wisdom of how to recover from grief into the book. They're not going to want anything more. That is wrong. So if you think through, what problems will people have even after they've read your brilliant book? And if you're willing, to help them as a coach, as a consultant, as a speaker, as a workshop leader, or maybe you have a PDF or whatever, think through it. Because most best-selling, award-winning authors that you know about, like the Mel Robbins or the Wayne Dyers of the world or the Brandon Sandersons of the world, they don't necessarily they make 85% of their income not from their book, but from the other things that they do. So most first-time authors don't know about that. So that's why I wrote Turn Words into Wealth, to give you 7 different models and proof of concept for how they work, different examples with my clients or other people. So choose one of those models, and you can even add it to the book at the very last stage, but you need to add it like a little bit of yeast. So you don't want to just slap it on in the author's bio. You want to sprinkle a little yeast, so the whole book is also letting them know that you can solve the next problem that they have.
I love that. There's so much about what you teach that I also talk to people about. So tell people, if they want more Aurora, where do they find you? You've talked about a YouTube channel, you've talked about a dozen books and systems. You've got a new YouTube, Strategic Basics. Tell people where to find you so they can have more.
Thanks so much. Well, if people want help creating their book with the spoken author method, they can sign up for a free business breakthrough call at bookcall.biz, and then I can have a chat with them and see if I can help them. If they'd like to get my book, Turn Words into Wealth, they can get it wherever books are sold, but they can also get it for free if they would like at turnwordsintowealth.com. They get the ebook for free, but if you want the print book, you can get it on Amazon or other places like that. And then my company is samepagepublishing.com. If you want even more information, you can check that out, samepagepublishing.com, because I come on the same page as my clients. This was fun. What an unexpectedly deep and thoughtful conversation we had.
So, Aurora, I want to thank you for being with us and sharing your heart and your love and your gifts and your encouragement with people today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You are welcome. I want to encourage all of you listeners to listen a couple of times and to go to those different places and check that out. She has done what we've talked about a lot. She's taken her life experience and poured her heart and soul into different ways to lift and bless your life. And I can tell you for sure, because I recognize lots of the methods and things that she talks about, if you follow what she says, and if you lean in and expect miracles from your own being, from your life, and from the universe, you will move forward to create your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe, share,